Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Mr. Vane Reviews podcast. My name is Kyle Warwood, and I am Mr. Vane. And again, with me, as always, is James. Hello, James.
Hello, how are you?
I am excellent. All right, let's get into it. We've got mostly a ton of news to talk about. So today we're going to end up talking about Daredevil, the show that just dropped last week. And we'll talk a little bit about the show, but also kind of about just Daredevil in general, you know, who he is, his powers, etc. Maybe some fun facts. But yeah, let's get started on the news. A ton of movie news and trailers has released. But let's start with the new James Bond trailer. We just watched that, the new Spectre trailer. What did you think? You know, go for it.
I liked it. I was interested. I was hooked. I like teaser trailers from these Bond movies that have Daniel Craig. I thought Skyfall was really good. Now this one is really good, given the maybe that Bond has a brother of some sorts, or maybe just half brother, because
it's a half brother, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. And half brother becoming the villain that Bond would have to fight. I like it. Plus, I like the little chime they do, the classic Bond theme. So
yeah. Well, it basically, after Skyfall, because you saw at the start, the MI6 building was still, in ruins from the explosion, and so MI5 is going to absorb MI6, and the way Spectre has worked throughout history is that it would pit two powerful groups against each other, and then once they had destroyed each other to the greatest extent, Spectre would go in and clean up and finish off the rest of them. So,
that's a good premise.
I think what they're doing is something like that, but it's two organizations joining up together, so maybe not. There wasn't any action in the trailer, which kind of confused me, but I'm sure they'll release another one here pretty soon.
Oh yeah, and I have no problem with Bond having the first trailer without any action. That seems pretty normal for me, at least. Because Skyfall's teaser didn't have any action either.
Yeah, it is a spy genre as much as it would be an action genre, so yeah, I can kind of see it. Yeah, as it for that, let's get to the cool one that I'm really excited. Deadpool, it got its rated R rating finally. Did you see the trailer or little video they did for that on April? So on April Fool's Day, I can't remember the name of the show, but Mario Lopez was interviewing Ryan Reynolds as he was on set for Deadpool, recording up in Vancouver, and he just kind of has this smug look on his face, and he's like, "Oh, I hear you guys got the PG-13 rating." And Ryan Reynolds says, "Yeah, that's kind of what we had to go with." And then Mario Lopez says, "Oh, it's because you wanted to make it a family-friendly movie, because Deadpool is so family-friendly." And Ryan Reynolds just has the look on his face of just, facepalm, because he's just like, "No, Deadpool is not family-friendly at all." And then Mario Lopez just tries to go off, and somebody walks behind his chair on camera, and it's somebody in a Deadpool costume, which turned out to be Ryan Reynolds, so Mario Lopez was just talking to a recording or whatever, and then Deadpool picks up a chair and bashes it over Mario's head, and he's like, "Fuck you, Lopez." And he's just like, "April Fools, everyone. Deadpool will be rated R, you want it."
That is the best news. Well, everything I've heard from Deadpool so far has been great news, but this is the one we've all been wondering. No one wanted a PG-13 or below R movie, and we finally got an R movie of Deadpool.
Yeah, I mean, it goes as good news. A lot of people have said it's not the best news, because now it's reduced the amount of people that can see it, which reduces the amount of money it can make. But I mean, I put that list up there for you to look at, where it's the highest grossing films that have had the R rating, which, most of them were Warner Brothers films, so
yeah,
whatever. Number one was Passion of the Christ, which I didn't watch.
Yeah, and that is extreme for rated R. And I made so much money. And then American Sniper, it's okay that Deadpool got a rated R, because those people that don't want to watch it, it's not for them. It totally was never for them to begin with.
Yeah, this movie does definitely seem like a movie for the fans and not just for, everybody to go take a look at. But hell, we just went and watched Kingsman. That was rated R, and it was awesome. And it actually has made a ton of money, and everyone involved wants to make a sequel. It's just up to the studio.
Oh.
So, I mean, we might be seeing that soon. I laugh because The Matrix Reloaded is number 3 on this rated R list.
And that was the worst Matrix movie.
I'm pretty sure Revelations was, but yeah, let's
oh wait,
go
Revelations, yeah. The second one. No, the second one makes sense, because everyone was like, oh man, the second one, guys, the first one was so good, we gotta see this. And then disappointment ensued.
And then, I mean, the same thing follows immediately with 4 and 5, because you got The Hangover, which people thought was hilarious, and then you got the second one, which they thought would be hilarious, and then the third one is nowhere to be seen because there was, like, the second one, I'm sure. I couldn't barely make it through the second one. And then there's a couple others, Beverly Hills Cop, The Exorcist, Ted, Saving Private Ryan, blah, blah, blah. Ted was actually kind of funny. 300, which was great. And Wedding Crashers, whatever.
I'm actually shocked that Wedding Crashers is on here.
It's a Vince Vaughn movie with the Owen Wilson. The comedy stuff, I don't know. It's there. And then Terminator 2 Judgment Day. That's where I rounded that list off because that was an awesome movie.
And that's a good place to round it off.
Yep.
Good man, Kyle.
I am extremely excited for a Deadpool movie just because now we get the R rating, so we know, the violence and the swearing and whatnot, it'll be there, and it won't have to be limited. And I think it opens up the doors to give Deadpool fans the movie they want to see, and even comic book fans just in general, and maybe, a couple other people here and there who just want to go see it. And yeah. I cannot wait until next year because they've already started filming, and I've seen some of the footage, and I mean it's nothing incredible, but it looks like it's awesome. I am looking forward to it.
I'm really hoping. I have no doubts it's going to do good. Like I'm pretty sure it's going to do really well, but not only that, I also want it to do that well because if it does, then that goes to show that you can create superhero movies as a rated R film instead of keeping it at a PG-13 rating. If it does this, we can see other superhero films that go to more mature lengths than what we're used to seeing as like Avengers. There's nothing wrong with a PG-13 or Captain America, PG-13 Iron Man, but there's some of those heroes, you just can't contain them to a PG-13 rating without sacrificing some character traits. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You have a great point. And then I was going to also add that there's what seems like a good chance because it's also, kind of sort of set in the X-Men universe, and if this does well, they might just bring Deadpool into an X-Men movie. Who knows, because the franchise is in uncertain territory right now. We know they're going to make Apocalypse, and they're pretty sure they're going to make a Gambit movie. But after that, like, everybody's contracts are up. Jennifer Lawrence said she's done being Mystique, but I mean, she doesn't have to be in every movie. It's just Mystique. And then
I just want her to be gone.
Yeah, she does all right, but
it's
it's Mystique as a character. She doesn't have to be in every single movie. It's unnecessary.
Oh no, I have no problem with Mystique. I want Jennifer Lawrence gone.
Yeah, that's either way. I'm kind of just like we need to move on, but whatever.
True.
It's however they want to do that. But moving forward to why not? We'll skip one and then go back. Speaking of X-Men, they mentioned when the movie was about to come out that they had cut the actress who plays Rogue out of the movie. She was going to have like 10 or 15 minutes. Just a scene where they had her helping, I think they were freeing Kitty Pryde or Magneto or both from this facility, so that they could use them for the plan, and then they just changed it to where, Xavier and Magneto and Storm and Wolverine just find them. Like, whatever. And so people said they were upset and they wanted to see Rogue, because that would just be cool. And even though she's totally useless in the future because she can't absorb the Sentinel's powers, so it's just like, who cares? But they said they were going to release later a rogue cut of Days of Future Past. So they released some details a few weeks ago, and it's going to have a whole 11 extra minutes. That's right, 11 extra minutes.
That is the biggest cash grab I have ever seen.
That's all I think it is.
That's all it is. I mean, now that they say that there's going to be a whole extra 11 minutes for Rogue, that totally makes my suspicions for the Sentinels, because when they would grab certain mutants like Iceman and what's his name, Colossus, they would absorb their power, right? And I always found that very interesting. I'm like, that seems to be a trait of Rogue, but they never explained it. They just said, no, it's Mystique powers that they use. I'm like, no, Mystique can't absorb powers. Now they can transform, but they can't absorb powers. But they never explained it, so I'm like, maybe I'm thinking too much into it. But now that they say that there's 11 minutes of Rogue, maybe there's an explanation somewhere that maybe Rogue does die somewhere in the movie, and they use her genes and splice them into the Sentinels, where they can then absorb and become the opposite of whatever mutant they're fighting.
All right. Yeah, okay. So, I mean, that is a fair point. Then that might actually clear up some they might not have understood. So it's not all bad, but...
It's not all bad. Was anyone
minutes.
really confused or asking for it? I think people just accepted it.
I mean, are you going to go buy another copy of this movie?
No way. No way am I going to do that. If they wanted me to buy that, they should have released it day one.
Yeah, bonus content.
Yeah, that's what it is. The Wolverine came with bonus content. The Wolverine, there is a PG-13 and then there is a rated R version. And I'm so mad at myself. I still haven't seen the rated R version. I have it at home. I just need to watch it. But they did it when it came out. This is just shameful. I am disgusted by it, actually.
Yeah, I saw the special features for Days of Future Past, and they actually just play a bunch of extra scenes. Like, there's one where Mystique comes back to the X-Men mansion, and she talks to them about Magneto's plan, and then they, make her mad, and she just storms off. And a completely unnecessary scene, so they just cut it. But, I mean, they added that scene, which was 5-6 minutes.
And that part of that scene was in the trailers for the movie as well.
Yeah, so it's just like, you don't have to make a whole new cut, but whatever. I mean, it's gonna happen. They'll make some money off of it. Whatever. But moving forward, or sort of backwards but forwards, Disney has come out and announced that they're going to make some more live-action movies. With the success of Cinderella, it only seems, logical for them to take some other popular properties and give them the live-action treatment, of the which they've announced, although, they could easily cancel, or some of these could just be claimed as rumor, but these are the three that I saw. They're going to do a Mulan remake. Awesome. They're going to do Winnie the Pooh.
I don't... I'm already disappointed by this whole news. But Winnie the Pooh live action. Ooh, that's. I'm sorry. As much as I'm disappointed, I have to go see that. I have to go see that one. I have to see how they're going to do that.
Because it will be. I think it'll be Andy Serkis in the Tigger costume with the ping pong balls around him. That's how they're going to pull that off.
Yeah, I'll watch it. I'll watch that.
And then the third one was Beauty and the Beast. That I just when you ask yourself, when you ask yourself why, you just like they just wanted money.
Yeah.
And then the Cinderella movie got good reviews, which surprised me because I wasn't going to see it anyway, and I would have just hoped for poor reviews to help, confirm my suspicions that it would suck, and then Disney probably shared my same fears, and so they threw a 15-minute short from Frozen in front of that movie, so the people's small children will be like, "Oh my God, Mom, we have to go see Frozen," and that other movie with the blue dress lady.
With the blue dress. I am not surprised that it got good ratings at all, because it's just Cinderella, right? It's the same story as the animated film.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, the Cinderella story's been told a billion times. It's just, you know, it's an old brothers.
People love the story.
Yeah, it's an old Brothers Grimm tale. Like I took a class of literature, for elementary education literature, and we were reading stories that are currently children's stories, but when they were originally told, they were nothing like that. And like in Cinderella, the two stepsisters like mutilate themselves. They cut their feet apart and whatnot so that they can fit inside the shoe. And then it's like, oh, Cinderella put on a bloody shoe. That's so cool. And then when they lose, you know, the contest for the perfect foot or whatever, crows come and peck their eyes out because, you know, they're bitches or whatever.
Oh yeah. And there's more versions as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of versions, and I was surprised that they were going to make another, but whatever. So now they're making more, and Disney likes money, and we can only make fun of them so much because they also own some of our other favorite franchises, namely Marvel and Star Wars.
That's true, and I'm not going to get mad at them. I'm just going to get mad at the people supporting this live action. They're making their job so much easier. Do we really need a live action Beauty and the Beast? Does anyone really want to see? I guarantee you, Beauty and the Beast is going to be CGI.
No, maybe they could get Michael J. Fox to don his Teen Wolf costume again.
Oh my gosh, that's rude.
I know, a slam to Michael J. Fox. It was unnecessary. I apologize.
That was. Oh, you brilliant man with your jokes. Your hard, piercing jokes.
Yeah, it's whatever. Maybe Andy Serkis will do the Beast too. Who knows? He's the mocap king.
Who is he not? Right?
Yeah, exactly. So let's go on. Another trailer that we need to talk about is the new Terminator Genesis trailer. Did you get a chance to see that?
I had no idea there was a new Genesis trailer.
Oh, God. If you want to save yourself the pain, don't ever watch it, but I'm going to spoil it anyway. So if you saw the first one, they show the twist in the film, I mean, that we clearly haven't seen yet, where a Terminator gets sent further back in time to raise Sarah Connor, and then they're prepared for the first Terminator, and so that they can destroy him. And then apparently this is kind of like a twist/remake or something of Terminator 2. And so, you know, you see in the first trailer that liquid metal Terminator come back. And so they released this new trailer, which has a lot of footage from the first one, but it's also got some footage from the future in the past, where Sarah Connor's telling John that he's got to prepare himself to be the best soldier he can be so he can lead the resistance. And he needs to find out any way he can to help free mankind. And then it jumps to the future where they invade the time travel pod or room or whatever. And Kyle Reese is like, send me back. I can do it. And so he goes back and there's all that stuff. And they're fighting the liquid metal Terminator, and he turns into John Connor. Or John Connor shows up and turns into the liquid metal Terminator, and you're like, the fuck? And so they just really revealed another twist. They're worse than M. Night Shyamalan. And it's like, is there anything left in this movie to show? Like, have I seen the whole thing? Have they laid all their cards on the table, and we just know exactly what's going to happen? Like, that's it. It's John Connor like, oh, well, Mom, you told me to be the best I could be, and this is how I'm going to save mankind, by becoming a robot. It's just like, I don't know what they're doing. If they've got a third twist, I guess that's okay. But if they don't, then they have ruined their movie.
I'm sorry. I'm still shocked at, I don't want to believe what you just said at all. I'm having, oh my gosh, my brain is so overloaded with so many negative thoughts. And that is the worst twist I have. Wow.
I thought it was a great idea. It's just, why did they reveal that in a trailer? You usually save that for the movie to blow people away, get good reviews, and get more people to come see your movie.
Okay, ignoring the twist, you're right. That's what makes a bad trailer. Showing everything, and I hate how that's still a common thing to do.
Well, and they've done it twice now. Both trailers they've released have revealed a huge twist.
Well, yeah, but the first trailer gave you enough to get you to go, right? We all knew there was going to be something more to it, but then they did this. There could be nothing that tops John Connor becoming a Terminator. Nothing is going to top that. Everyone who has ever seen or has watched Terminator knows that John Connor becoming a Terminator is the biggest thing you could have done. There's nothing else. The movie's ruined. The movie is ruined now. I will go see it, and I will be disappointed. I will... Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there's that. I feel bad because I put it in like my top 5 movies for the year because I was so excited, but I'm like half tempted.
I put it in my top 5 too. I think it was number 3.
Yeah, it was both our number 3. And I know I want to bump it off the list to the maybe, I don't even know if I want to put it on honorable mentions at this point.
Oh my gosh, that's just awful. Oh, come on.
Nah. All right. All right, we'll move on. We'll move on to another one.
Just hurts.
Marvel released a new Ant-Man trailer, and this one is a little less serious than the last one. They actually cracked a few more jokes. Did you get a chance to see it?
I did. I didn't think it was necessary.
I don't know. The first one was just way too serious. They're like, Scott Lang, you're a father. You need to be a better father and a hero. You need to be the Ant-Man. And then they're like, crack the one joke. It's just like, oh, well, I mean, I replayed the trailer over and over to try and find smaller things, like little Easter eggs that I might be able to steal from it, but it still just felt like, well, the director normally does comedies. Paul Rudd normally does comedies. Marvel's leader Kevin Feige came out and said it's going to be kind of a comedy movie. We want to do the movie that comes out after Avengers to just kind of end on a good note and, you know, explain some kind of aftermath things, etc., etc. I'm sure, like, Hank Pym will come out and say, yeah, that was my idea to do that Ultron thing, but I scrapped it when I realized it was only going to cause trouble. And look at what it did. But...
that would be cool, but it won't happen.
Yeah, but they finally show you the Yellow Jacket and his costume, which actually looks pretty awesome. And
yeah,
they show you the little tubes with the Pym particles. So that's good to know they're gonna actually use that as the explanation for the, you know, shrinking abilities and whatnot. And they show the Ant-Man suit in action. So he actually gets to talk to some ants, run a marathon or whatever with them through the ground, and he somehow convinces them to spin a coin without the helmet, but kind of think that, you know, Hank Pym's in, like, the car with him in the other seat with the helmet on. Maybe, perhaps, who knows. But, yeah, they actually show off some of his powers and explain them a little bit, and then there's that scene where Janet Van Dyne is there, and she just is like, hey, you need to learn how to fight people, so I'm going to show you how to punch. And a few people said, oh, that's so feministic or something about girls needing equal rights and such and such. And I totally just blew it off because it's a movie trailer. Don't read too much into it. But that's what we do.
We always...
But I actually got excited to see Ant-Man more so from this trailer than I did the first one. And so now I'm like, oh gosh, you know, in a month when that comes out, I want to go see it.
Really? I didn't think much of it. I still love the first one. I was going to go see it regardless. The second one didn't hurt my my views towards the movies. I just thought, that was unnecessary. It's all right. That was it. That was it for me.
All right. They also released today. They released a teaser and a trailer. The teaser was for Batman v Superman, and the trailer was for Star Wars. Did you see the Batman v Superman teaser?
Is that where they show off the costumes?
Yeah, that's where they show off the costumes.
Oh yeah. Ooh. Look at these costumes. guys. You've seen him before, right? Right? Well, look at him again.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought. I was like, wait a second. We've already seen their costumes in the promotional posters. This is not new. They're not really teasing anything because we've already seen it.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to remind us that the movie exists again. Like it feels like they fear that we lost interest by just forgetting about it, and they're like, oh, hey, we exist. Because I'm still not excited for that movie. I think it's going to be bad. Not bad. It'll be a watchable movie. It's not going to be the worst movie ever. But as far as comic book movies go, lore and characterization and expectations, it's going to be bad. Especially Batman. Batman's going to be bad. I already know Superman's going to be terrible. Batman's going to be the worst because it's Ben Affleck.
We'll talk a little bit about that today, maybe a little bit, because he was Daredevil at one point.
I know, and you know how good that movie was? It was awful.
Spoiler alert.
Come on. I'm not spoiling. I'm saving people 2 hours of pointless, painful dialogue and Ben Affleck's acting.
You need to see the honest trailers for that, because they did one in preparation for or just before the Daredevil show came out, and they just make fun of the fact that, like, at the scene where they fight /dance fight in the playground, like, Matt Murdock's trying to convince, Jennifer Garner's character, Elektra, like, oh, hey, you need to do this and come with me, blah, 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 or whatever, and she's like, no. And so what he does is he, like, grabs her and, like, holds on to her, which that's a good lesson to teach children, is if a girl says no, grab a hold of her. And then she continues to say no, so he fights her, which is another great lesson. If she continues to say no, just beat her up. And it's just like, yes, thank you, Honest Movie Trailers, for pointing that out. It's hilarious.
Oh my goodness.
So they're gonna show a trailer for Batman v Superman here in the next month. They're gonna have their own celebration, just like Marvel did, and just like Star Wars did with the /Star Wars, whatever did today, and where they released the new trailer. We're speaking of which, we just watched it a little while ago, and I made a lot of fun of it while we were watching it, just because it felt like they were showing us scenes from the movie, telling us stuff we already know. Like, Luke Skywalker was just like, oh, my dad has the Force. I have the Force. My sister has the Force. Yes, these are things we all know. If we watched any of the previous movies, we know this. I thought this was supposed to be new stuff. And then they're like, here's some stuff about TIE fighters. Here's some Star Destroyers. Here's some Stormtroopers. It's like, none of this is new. Here's some X-Wing fighters. Here's the Millennium Falcon fighting some TIE fighters. Still nothing new. And then, like, here's Harrison Ford. He just said we're home with Chewie. They're in the Millennium Falcon with their guns drawn. Hurrah. Come on, Disney. If you're gonna call it a, movie trailer or even just a teaser, give us something worth watching. You can come back with something better.
Yeah, they can.
And then also, and we both said it as soon as I paused it on the Kylo Ren or whatever his character. He's got a mask on. And as soon as I paused it, we're just like, that's Darth Revan's mask.
Totally. It's almost shameless.
Yeah, a pure copy of it. But since they just abolished all other Star Wars comic books, novels, anything else, any movie or anything else, like, that's not one of the 6 movies or the new cartoon Rebels, they're like, it's not canon. I'm pretty sure they even said that the Star Wars Christmas special is no longer canon.
What? No. No.
I mean, it's not like it matters, but it's just like, just because you said that Revan is no longer canon doesn't mean you can just totally rip him off. Don't take his mask. But, I mean, we watched that other video where it was pointed out that, it's possible that he's a collector of Sith artifacts and that he has that burnt up mask of Darth Vader's. And, I mean, for all we know, he took Darth Revan's mask and decided to wear it. Because, I mean, Revan's character kind of goes from light side to dark to light to dark to light to dark to somewhere in between. And then you played the game where it's, half of his soul or something, and he just bounces back and forth because apparently his soul is conflicted and is able to wield both light and dark. And
makes him one of the coolest people ever.
Yeah, and so, it's possible that he still somehow exists in the Star Wars universe, and the new Sith guy is just like, you know what? I really like his mask, so I'm gonna wear it because he revolutionized the universe once or twice, and I'm gonna do the same thing.
I feel like if they say Revan is a part of this universe, I feel like I'm gonna be slapped in the face by Disney. It's like, your canon does not exist. Slap. Here's Revan. He exists. Oh, that's how I would feel. I don't know about anybody else. If people could be happy, and I have no problem with that. For me, I'd feel like that's a bit of a jerk thing to do.
Man, it would be weird, but I just couldn't believe it. I felt like this was a really, I'm still excited for Star Wars. I'll still watch it. It's probably going to be a great movie. We've never been let down by a Star Wars movie before.
Oh, of course not.
and so my hope is just that they're not, they do something good, and maybe they'll give us another trailer that's not stuff we already know. I'm not saying I want them to pull off a Terminator Genesis and just reveal the whole damn thing, but at the same time, the least they could do is give us something, good.
Yeah, I'm still waiting to see my boy Luke Skywalker.
Yeah,
but wait.
You sort of saw him in a cloak with his arm, his robotic arm or whatever, and C-3PO in desperate need of a bath or something. No, that was R2-D2. My bad. Gotta get those right.
You're gonna make 1,000 people angry just by that.
1,000? I probably just pissed off 1 million people on the internet. Their ears started burning. As soon as I post this podcast, they're gonna just come attack me. I mixed up 2 of the droids. Oh, man. And then there was a couple other scenes with, basketball robot, basketball McGee or whatever they call him. I still think he's a ridiculous robot.
I want that droid. I want it.
It's an actual movie prop. You could probably, if you're, a sneaky ninja, go and steal it.
I know people.
You know people.
I know people. I will get that droid, and I will show you it. And we will play with it.
We will play with it, and, probably get in trouble, but whatever. But yeah, so there's all that, bunch of movie news and stuff about trailers, lots and lots of trailers. But we are, despite the snowstorm we just had yesterday.
Fun. Spring is here.
Yeah, that we are on the precipice of summer, and with that comes a ton of movies. Summertime is just prime time for movies, and in 2 weeks we're going to be seeing Avengers, so we're going to have like a longer wait between podcasts because we're going to wait to see that movie and then talk about it because it's going to be awesome.
Oh man.
But yeah, we're coming into that time, so we're just going to be talking about movies repeatedly, and news is just dropping left and right because people want to get the world hyped for their film. But Marvel has just released the first season altogether of their new Daredevil show, which is it's not their first foray into television. They've already got Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. running its second season and renewed for a third and getting a spin-off. But
what's the spin-off?
I'm pretty sure it's about the Inhumans that they've got going on right now. So Kevin Feige came out and said that they've got the Royal Family Inhumans, which is what the movie will be about. And was it like 3 years that it's coming out? 3 or 4? Sometime. Mm-hmm. They're going to have that movie come out, and it'll practically be about the royal family with like Black Bolt and what have you. But there are so many other Inhumans all across the galaxy, especially here on Earth, and so Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is currently doing a whole run on them. They've got Daisy, aka Quake, who's Sky, that's her character's name. She's one of the main comic book characters, I guess you could say, that's in the show right now, and they got a few others that are there. but they're really running hard with the Inhuman storyline right now. And so Kevin Feige said that the two things you won't see in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or the spin-off are the Royal City and the Royal Family. So, I expect to see some cool stuff. But, yeah, Marvel released Daredevil on Netflix, so you get all 13 episodes in one go. I have already binge-watched it in like a day and a half.
You lucky man.
I spent every waking moment watching that show just because I wanted to be able to talk about it on the podcast and just talk to anybody about it, but I haven't met anybody else who's binge-watched it like I have. Everybody's just kind of like, yeah, finals are here, I got other stuff to do, but it has received rave reviews. It, on Rotten Tomatoes, has so many positive, even sometimes 100% reviews, and then there's that one guy who just said it sucks. One douche. One singular person has said that it sucks, and that's not enough to convince anybody. It is an awesome show. Definitely worth your time. If you can binge watch it, I would highly recommend you do so. It is fun, but at the same time it is super dark, gritty, and very violent.
Very.
If you are a parent and you want to let your kids watch this, I discourage that if you don't like violence. If you thought that Loki getting smashed by the Hulk was as much as you thought your child could handle at this point in their life, then don't let them watch this show, because it is bloody, and Daredevil happily breaks people's legs, arms, and various other limbs just because he can, and he's blind. So, I mean, yeah, it is gruesome. But that is not a bad thing. This is a dark side of Marvel that we've been wanting to see for a long time, and I, for one, have very much enjoyed it today. We could talk a little bit about Daredevil, somewhat the comic book character, somewhat the TV character. You said you've made it like 4 episodes in?
Yeah.
So we won't go too spoiler heavy. I'll talk about a lot of the Easter eggs and some of the others that are in the show, and then you can, chime in with the stuff that you know. But I kind of wanted to just talk about Daredevil himself, the character. He was created in 1964 by Stan Lee, Bill Everett, and Jack Kirby. But I mean, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, they created a lot of characters, so this is just another one to add to their list. He started out with a red, yellow, and black costume that he made from his dad's boxing robe, but later on, Frank Miller would go on to take over writing for Daredevil, and he would release the mini-novel The Man Without Fear, which is where this show heavily borrows most of its material from, because for most of the show, in fact, all of it except for like the last 10 minutes, you see Daredevil in like a black suit with a black bandana over his head. And it's awesome. Because if you've ever, I picked up Man Without Fear a little while ago and read through it, and it is awesome. If you are looking for some Daredevil comics to read, which I'll get to at the end of this discussion, I put a small list together. But Frank Miller does a really good job. He's one of those names that you recognize in comic books. He's like Jeff Loeb or Jeff Johns or Brian Michael Bendis. It's a name you recognize, and you can usually trust that series has it's been done justice. It's a really good series to read. I really like Jeff Johns' run with Green Lantern, and so anytime I've seen his name, it's something I've wanted to read. Same with Frank Miller. He did The Man Without Fear, and it's one I would highly recommend. It does kind of an origin story for him, but it mainly focuses on his early days as a vigilante. You saw I was going to ask if you saw the first episode, but we just talked about you having seen it. The first episode is not an origin story, and that's not a bad thing. It spends like the first 5 minutes maybe showing what's already happened. Like, you come into this show, wreck has already happened, chemicals have been spilled, Matt Murdock is crying because he's a kid. And he just had some harsh chemicals spilled into his face. All to save an old blind man. And so, I actually, when I saw that first episode, was super happy that we spent maybe 5 minutes on him being a kid getting, in an accident, and then we're done. Almost shortly thereafter, you see him in the shipyard beating up those guys who stole the leftover girls that Liam Neeson forgot to save and taken. And little parkour, a little bit of, acrobatics, and he kicked those guys' butts.
Yeah, Man Without Fear is amazing. I'm so glad that they, from the episodes that I have watched, really utilized his lawyer.
Oh yeah,
that side of life.
Yeah, that first episode was really good because they take Karen Page, and that murder gets framed on her, and that's like the first case that Foggy and Matt take up, and that's a lot of the first episode is them working with her and kind of saving her life and talking to her, and you kind of see some of Matt Murdock's superpowers of like being able to tell if someone's lying based on hearing their heartbeat. But, I mean, that's one of his superpowers, sort of. I don't know. I've read a bunch of the other comics, and he sometimes has the sonar ability, and sometimes it's really hyper effective, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's like a mist and he sees outlines. But he's almost always been able to smell certain things and hear people's heartbeats and tell they're lying. And so...
And I can understand that, after 5 senses, losing one of them, the other senses would pick up a lot, but for Matt, it seemed to pick up extremely. I get that, but I wouldn't say he has superpowers.
So I just want to go over maybe some of the Easter eggs in the show. We were going to talk about a lot of the episodes, but since you haven't seen it, we won't go into too much detail. But there are tons and tons of Easter eggs, and a lot of characters that are, like, you see in the show, and they're there. Some of them die, some of them don't. We won't get into too many spoilers, but, I want to start off with Stick. He's played by Scott Glenn, who looks a lot like Clint Eastwood and a lot of other old Hollywood actors. They just all have the same old guy face. But he's the mentor of Matt Murdock, and it's really not even mentioned for the most part in the comics, but in The Man Without Fear, they go into introducing Stick as a character and having him train Matt Murdock as a child and teach him the ways of the blind martial artist. So it basically kind of says that, before you would just think that Matt Murdock learned how to fight himself or something like that. He just picked up some cool skills, learned how to parkour or whatever, and just became a superhero. But here, it actually gives you the explanation and brings in more stories, because Stick has his own episode. It's like 7 or 8, and he comes to Hell's Kitchen and recruits Matt Murdock to come help him destroy something. And Matt Murdock's the only one with the skills necessary to help Stick out. And then stuff happens, blah, blah, blah. Matt Murdock proves himself the warrior he needed to be, that Stick wasn't sure if he could be, because eventually Stick leaves him, and they bring that up, like his sudden disappearance in Matt's life. And they also explain his sudden appearance. But he does an awesome job. Scott Glenn, great job playing Stick. At the end of that episode, he's sitting down talking to this guy you only see the backside of, and he is listed as Stone. The number 2 in the clan, the Chaste. They fight the Hand, which is like one of the main bad guy groups in the Daredevil comics. They actually have a character from the clan, the Hand, and we'll talk about him in just a bit. But yeah, it also was kind of funny because his trainer's name is Stick, and the number 2's name is Stone, and for some reason, Sticks and Stones.
Oh man, it'll break my bones.
Exactly. See, they'll break your bones, and there it is. That's where that came from. History lesson, folks. History lesson.
I missed that. No.
But it basically shows that Daredevil's powers weren't all derived from the chemicals. But speaking of the Hand, later on in the show, there's a ninja that shows up. His name is Nobu. He's just part of the Japanese side of Wilson Fisk's crime empire. He's not really the kingpin at this point in time. He's just Wilson Fisk building lots of money, trying to tear down and rebuild Hell's Kitchen for whatever reason it is. He tries to say that it's to build up a city that needs help, but let's be honest, he's a bad guy. He's not here to help anyone.
Yep.
And anyways, Nobu shows up in his super comic book accurate costume. He's got like the red garb, the cool like hook blade on a chain thing, and he pulls off some stuff that would make Kratos jealous. And it's probably one of the best fights, because you'll see Daredevil fight the Kingpin at the end of the show, and it's cool, but the Kingpin's just a brute. He's got a lot of strength, and it's, he's not the best fighter in the show.
Yeah.
And Nobu is just crazy awesome. And he even mentions to Daredevil that, hey, you have someone has trained you in our ways. And it alludes to the idea that they're going to have maybe in season 2 or something like that. It could be even in the Iron Fist show. Who knows? I doubt it, but it could be. That these two clans will fight against each other, because Stick, when talking to Stone, was mentioning that this war is coming about, and they want to know if Matt Murdock will be able to help. So that happens. There's some cool comic book stuff there. But speaking of the Kingpin, they don't call him that yet. He doesn't have the like white suit and stuff, but it is funny when he's talking his love interest, Vanessa, she mentions that there was a guy who seduced her who wore a big white suit. It's kind of funny that you see that. And it's also cool, speaking of Vanessa, as a character she's introduced, and she actually accepts the Kingpin's dark side, where he's into crime and he does illegal things in order to get his way. And she isn't sure at first, but she eventually comes to accept it and sort of pulls his strings. And maybe not. He seems kind of like a guy who's not really in control at this point in time. So it's a young Kingpin. It's a young Wilson Fisk, and I actually like that. Thought that was a good idea. You've only seen 4 episodes, so what do you think of the Kingpin so far? You've only seen a very little bit.
I could tell right off the bat it wasn't the Kingpin I knew. But that is okay, because just like you said, he is starting off. And I do love the way they approached it, because and it could be that the actor is just really good, but I feel like there is still a little bit of a person in there that wants to help out New York. I really do. I feel like there is a part of Wilson Fisk that does. Eventually that'll go out the way. Because when I watch every scene with Wilson Fisk so far, right? Because I'm on I'm going to be on the 5th episode. I actually am I really feel for this character. I'm like, man, I want him to succeed in his goals. But when I say that, I'm like, oh my gosh, that means I want him to kill people. No, I can't have that. He's so good. I care about him, which is more than I could say for any villain that I have ever seen. This one, I'm like, wow, I want this person to come out okay. I know he won't, but I like that approach, because there's still just a little bit of innocence within that man until he goes full Kingpin, cold-hearted, bad A that we all know. But as of right now, I think it's a really good approach that they're taking. They're making me relate to this character. And, oh man, that makes me enjoy him even more. I'm like blown away that I can relate to this person, this horrible, horrible person.
That's solid proof of good writing for the writer's part of this. And Vincent D'Onofrio, he's a great Kingpin. I mean, the guy they had who did it in the original, was that 2003 film? Yeah, it was 2003 when Daredevil came out. That's Ben Affleck movie. But for the Kingpin, they had Michael Clark Duncan, and he unfortunately passed away a few years ago. I'm not saying they would have picked him or that I would have loved or hated him, but he did an okay job in that movie as the Kingpin. But at the same time, when somebody's passed on and they've done a role, you usually look at them and wonder if you can actually fill those shoes. And if anybody did a good job at it, it was definitely Vincent D'Onofrio. Yeah. He does an awesome job.
Man, I gotta tell you, he's smooth. You know that line? It's like, well, if you can buy a woman, they're not worth your time.
Yeah.
Ooh, my heart was flattered. It's like,
whoa.
I'm blushing here.
Whoa.
Ooh.
Jeez.
He was good. You
got to be good to pick up a chick who runs a tiny little art studio in New York.
Hey, those art women.
Those are women.
Those are women. Some of them are super nice, and some of them are just super high maintenance. He got that super high maintenance to blush. That's all that matters.
All right. They have his like secretary or sidekick or whatever, John Wesley. He does a really good job, and sometimes you wonder if he's the real Kingpin, but he doesn't get a ton of screen time, and he eventually he's got to die or leave because the Kingpin has to be the ruler. But I don't like having him there. They also have Owlsley as part of this crime group. It's funny because he's a Daredevil villain who looks a lot like those bad guys from the Rockadoodle cartoon. in the comic books, not in the TV show. In the TV show, he's just this old guy who's really good with money, and he's basically the financial advisor for the crime group that they run, this crime club or whatever. But he does a really good job. But in the comic book, it's funny because he can sometimes fly, and he's got these owl-based powers or something. One of those ridiculous Daredevil villains that they've managed to actually humanize and do a good job with. But later on, Daredevil will try to confront him, and he will get taken down by a taser. Daredevil will, and Owlsley uses that taser multiple times with success, and it's hilarious because these people are so badass, and it's this old guy they should beat up, and he gets him with a taser, twice. Rounding out the little crime group, the crime club, is Madame Gao. She has been also a lot of people said she's the Crane mother from the comics. She kind of runs this city somewhere in Asia, does her own thing, and she is basically trafficking drugs for the Kingpin. And there's that little pink symbol on all of the drugs that they traffic, and it's the symbol from the Steel Serpent clan, and it's Iron Fist's mortal enemy.
Yeah, there we go.
And so Iron Fist kind of gets his shout out or whatever, or teaser, his Easter egg, where they're gonna basically say, yeah, because eventually Madame Gao has to go back to her city if she owns one, right, or runs one. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure somewhere there, Madame Gao will probably show up for the Iron Fist show, maybe. I don't know.
You have to imagine, if the fight scenes are amazing in Daredevil, just imagine Iron Fist.
Yeah.
That's straight up martial arts. Oh my goodness.
And then in the first episode I talked about Daredevil at the docks. He attacks this group of guys that are run by Turk Barracks, who will show up once or twice in the rest of the series, but nothing real serious. Turk Barracks is the name of Stiltman from the comics, who is just the most villainous-sounding bad guy of all time. Because he's Stiltman, right up there with the likes of Kite Man.
Hey, man, you gotta watch out for that kite.
But they actually show Stiltman stilts, or at least something that, you look at him in the comic books, and Stiltman's kind of like this robot with these legs that extend, and so you just kind of wonder, what the heck, why would that be useful? But he usually has laser guns or something, some kind of tool. And there's this guy named Melvin Potter who actually has stilt legs, robotic stilt legs that look like they're from the comics, in his shop. You'll see them in the last episode, in episode 13. Because Melvin Potter will also make his red Daredevil costume. Because he's this character who makes stuff. He's kind of weird because he freaks out over a lot of stuff, but he's the personal tailor of the Kingpin, and he makes this material that makes their suits blade proof. Blade is in a knife, not the African American vampire hunter.
Yeah.
Because if he showed up, he would kill them. Blade's my man, I like him.
if I'm not mistaken, the same guy is the one who makes costumes for everybody, villains and heroes.
Melvin Potter is the Gladiator. He's this guy who's got like spinny saw blades on his, like a strap to his arm, which they show it briefly. Like when Matt Murdock shows up to get his costume, he looks down at the table, but he's blind. So, although, however, Daredevil it's been said that his power, his senses are so great that he can rest his fingers on a newspaper or magazine and actually read the imprint of the ink on the paper. And
dang.
So it's practically not blindness, but he looks down at this table, and then this camera pans down there, and you see really briefly these like blueprints of like kind of a device that's got a saw blade strapped to it. And that ends up, Melvin Potter / the Gladiator ends up being one of the Daredevil villains. But he's got this girl that he wants to protect, and Daredevil promises to help in turn, for getting a cool suit. Which is where he gets his red suit, but like I said, it's in the last few minutes of the show, which was a good idea. It's good to see him in the black costume for a long time, but he gets told repeatedly he needs something better.
Yeah, he does need something better.
They mention Elektra briefly. They're talking about Matt Murdock and Foggy Nelson's college days at some point, and they talk about this Greek girl that he used to date, and that's Elektra. There's just like a super brief mentioning of her. She's really big in the Daredevil comics, but they did not do anything else for her. It was just very brief, like one reference to her. Bullseye may have been referenced. He's like a psychopath in the comics.
He's got to be in the show at some point.
Not
like the first season, but I mean like a future season.
Yeah, he'll be in the show at some point. It's only alluded to because there's this sniper that shows up to, snipe some people, and he opens up his gun case and starts piecing together his rifle, and you can see like an ace of spades inside the case. And so there are some like playing card references to the Kingpin's, crime club, and they sometimes show that board, but usually in the comics, like, playing cards are a thing for Bullseye. And so, it could be him, it might not be. They don't say his name or anything else, but he totally nails a few people with that gun, so there's a fair chance.
I don't know. I haven't seen that episode yet. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's not. Because if they're gonna, it depends on what they want to do with Bullseye. Are they gonna go to like a more down to earth gritty style where he's going to be like an assassin pulling out guns, or is he going to be Bullseye from the comics where he doesn't use guns, he uses anything around him as his ammo, projectiles, no matter what. A peanut, he could kill someone with a peanut.
Yeah. In the 2003 movie, they did that post-credit scene where he like kills a fly on the ceiling with like a paper clip or something when he's like in the body cast.
Yeah.
And so, which was cool because that shows the high end of his skills where he's that good. It reminds me of, and it's a different character, but Hawkeye in the Ultimates comics, he's actually able, while being strapped down to a chair, he's able to take his fingernails.
Oh, that's my favorite part.
Rip them out and flick them into the throats of the guys that are in the room with him, and he kills them all, and they have no idea what's happening because the only other guy in the room is strapped down. And so I always think of that when I think of Bullseye. And it's possible that it wasn't him, but I feel like they're just kind of setting up some super subtle Easter eggs for us. Because some are more obvious than others, like they do mention the Avengers a few times. They mention Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America, so that you can know that it is part of that universe. And they refer to the Avengers movie, that battle in New York, as the event a few times. They're like, oh, this thing happened. And they're talking about rebuilding Hell's Kitchen. And Hell's Kitchen isn't, like I saw a map because there used to be a Hell's Kitchen in New York. And the mayor at the time changed it some years ago to sound more friendly. He changed it to like Center City or Central City or something.
Oh.
Or Downtown City, something like that, so that it's not Hell's Kitchen. But it's not too far away from where, in the comic books, Avengers Tower is located, though you won't see the tower in this show.
Of course.
But Ben Urich, the guy who works for the news, well, one of the news outlets, he has a framed newspaper clipping of him covering the Battle of New York, and they also mention that he did a story on the two giant monsters who beat up Harlem, which, I mean, everybody knows was the Incredible Hulk movie. So
yeah, there's no escaping that. I wonder if they're going to mention. This is where I'm curious if they're going to mention Ben Urich is working at the Daily Bugle.
Oh, yeah, in the comics he does work at the Daily Bugle, but when they were filming this show, they didn't have any of the rights to Spider-Man. And Kevin Feige talked about it at the Avengers world premiere the other day. He said, yes, it's about Spider-Man. He's like, we had all these things going on, but we hadn't solidified the deal with Sony yet, and so we couldn't use any of the properties that we had been able to share with them. Which, quick side note, they've totally said it's going to be Peter Parker, and he'll be a teenager in high school, because that's where some of his best stories occurred. It won't be Miles Morales. So everybody fighting for racial equality in movies. Yeah, you're getting Luke Cage, and you're getting Black Panther, and you're getting a whole ton of DC movies. So quit, crying about it. It's Peter Parker. Deal with it.
Yeah.
But they've also said that Spider-Man's been in New York, and it's just like Daredevil just isn't aware of him. He's been spinning webs there for a while, and it's just nobody's known about it. And, Chris Evans said he secretly hopes that in Civil War he gets to, mentor Spider-Man or something at some point, though they haven't said how much exposure he'll get in that movie. Hopefully not a lot, because the movie is named Captain America, not anyone else.
That's true. But that's very interesting. So, Spider-Man is around, swinging around. I get it. No one can see him yet, but it's kind of hard to miss webs on buildings. But
well, they deteriorate after an hour.
I know, but with the amount of people they got going there, someone has to. It's New York, but that makes me happy that he's there. I can understand that Daredevil hasn't run into Spider-Man yet, and as you said, they haven't had the property, but now they do. So maybe in the future seasons they might incorporate that. Yeah,
or at least mention it. But it's pretty good. They've definitely established that this is part of the Marvel Universe and that it's associated with the Avengers. Daredevil may not end up in the Avengers, but he might end up in the Civil War movie. Who knows?
I would love to see him in the Civil War movie. He doesn't need to be Daredevil. He could be the lawyer for whoever needs protective services against the law at that point. That would be an amazing cameo.
Yeah, and that's about it. Last but not least, there is sort of, but not really, a Stan Lee cameo. He actually doesn't physically show up in the show, and I'm okay with it. He does apparently get 2 in the Avengers, so.
2?
Yeah, he gets 2 cameos, so whatever. But there's a couple of scenes that take place inside the police station, and if you look behind the guy at the counter to the right, you'll see an Employee of the Month or something plaque, and it's Stan Lee in a police uniform. So there it is, Stan Lee cameo. That's most of the Easter eggs. There are probably a lot more. That show is just riddled with it, but those are some you can look out for when you watch the show. So now when you see them stamping that symbol on all the weed or cocaine or whatever it is they're saying, I don't know drugs. The white stuff.
Probably cocaine.
Heroin. I think they said it was heroin. And you'll know that is the clan of the Steel Serpent or whatever, and that Iron Fist is definitely happening. It sucks because they don't really mention any of those characters. They have these Easter eggs, and they already came out and said, we filmed the Daredevil show long before these others were even cast, and so we kind of just had to burn through it too, because we had to get it ready for this set time so it could release on this date, and we just didn't have time to fit in all this other stuff, and so you're not going to see a lot of these other characters mentioned, but in the future it'll probably happen. And they're going to do a Defenders movie or show soon, so. And
that's okay that they didn't do cramming in, because this is Daredevil. Let's ease into Daredevil. Future seasons they can do that. They can do all the cramming, because at least then we have established who Daredevil Matt Murdock is. So I think that worked out for them.
Yep. And I mean, since we can't really do a general rating system on this one, where I would normally say buy it, borrow it, or burn it, definitely watch this show. Get Netflix, if only for a month. Maybe they give you a free 30-day trial if you haven't signed up for it. I don't know. I'm not advertising for them, but if you haven't seen it and you want to, or you're wondering, go do it. It is great. It is an awesome show, and it's totally worth your time. Marvel has continued to wow us, and this is one of the best. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, there's nothing else to say. It's a show you definitely have to watch. Whether just watch through, and then you can come up with a verdict then, whether you like it or hate it, but it's one of those shows that needs to be watched.
Yep, totally worth it. Yes, it is a little violent, as we said before, but, I mean, if you're an adult, you can handle it. Watch it. Lastly, I just want to go over a couple of reading recommendations. Something. There are a few books that I looked up and got recommended to me, and I read some of them. There's only one on this list actually that I didn't read, but it was recommended to me, and I just kind of didn't put it at the forefront because I just didn't want to. But the first one I would recommend is Daredevil Yellow. It's one of the older ones, but it's definitely good. It kind of takes place later in Daredevil's life after he's lost a few people. Or just, one or two. And he kind of just reminisces on his early days as Daredevil, which is kind of this show, but Daredevil's not in a yellow costume, but it does go over the days when he was in a yellow costume, like back in the 60s. And, it was a good one. Again, Frank Miller's, Man Without Fear. Highly recommend that. It's really good. Frank Miller did a lot of Daredevil stuff. Almost anything he did with Daredevil was good. Frank Miller did a lot of good comic books. He's, like I said earlier, one of those ones that you usually know that it's going to be a good run. He also did the Elektra Saga, which has a lot of Daredevil in it, and is just generally good. If you want to get over the Elektra movie that came out years ago, then please read this. It will help you feel good about that character. Frank Miller did another Daredevil Born Again. That one's really good. And then last but not least, any Daredevil book by Brian Michael Bendis. He did the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, not the Miles Morales ones. Those are Ultimate Comics, Ultimate Spider-Man, just the regular Ultimate Spider-Man. He did those, and he did a really, really good job with them. So his Daredevil books I read a few of, and they are incredible. It will kind of jump around, but I mean, this ought to, whet your palate for Daredevil content, if that's something you are looking to get into.
Those are all good recommendations. I want to make one more, though, or name one.
Do it.
I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but I'm 95% sure. It's a graphic novel, one shot, part of the Marvel Knights that Kevin Smith came in and revitalized what we now know as the Marvel Knights. One of his runs was called Guardian Devil. It is a fantastic story because it is just the worst things that can happen for Daredevil. Just the absolute most horrific day. You thought killing Joker's day was bad? No. You gotta read this. Oh my gosh. You'll feel so bad for Daredevil, and then the person behind it all is quite the shock too. And then the end, I think, is just, what's the word? Makes it all worth it. The ending is just all worth it right there. It's small. It's
satisfying.
It's very satisfying for how small it is, because it's nothing grand. It's just incredibly, incredibly well done. That's what I recommend.
Awesome. Yeah, the Marvel Knights, I saw that one on there. It was one I wanted to put on the list, but I just kind of wanted to, grab 5 and go with it, because I figured Daredevil's not my favorite character of all time. I have to admit it. It's not that I wasn't looking forward to the show. I definitely was. But and he's become more of a favorite of mine. But I still like a lot of other characters better. He's just, I don't know. He's not the coolest, so it's I don't own a lot of his comics, but I do have some, and they are very good. But if you're looking to get into it, those are some recommendations we give. Definitely look into it. But I think that's about it for tonight. We've hit our time limit or whatever, but Anything else you want to add to that? You still got to finish the show, so I highly recommend it. I've probably said that a million times, but again, go see this show.
Oh, you darn right, I want to watch all of it. But no, I got nothing else to add. I think we said everything pretty clearly.
All right, so I guess we'll see you guys later. We'll see you next time when we're definitely gonna review the Avengers movie, talk about it. 2 hours, 31 minutes of glorious, Avengery stuff. New characters, new villain, earth-shattering consequences that will lead us into the Civil War. And Ant-Man, but mainly the Civil War.
Because that's all we care about.
Because we've been waiting for it, people. All right, well, that is it. If you guys have any comments, questions, smart remarks, you are welcome to contact us at Facebook. We are the Mr. Vane Reviews page. It has a link to our website and also links to SoundCloud where you can listen to and or download these very podcasts. I am found on Twitter at VaneDemise. And yeah, that's about it. If you want to get a hold of us, go for it. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Give us recommendations for things you'd like to hear us talk about, and we will consider them. And that's about it, you guys. We will see you next time.